Hi, thanks for joining today's CAD lesson. In today's exercise, we would model this single fixed pulley system with suspended load by rope. We would also animate just like you see. If you would have any comments, questions, concerns, or contributions, you can drop them down in the comment section below. I would respond to them as soon as possible. Let's begin with today's exercise. My software is opened. Let me get a worksheet. To do that, I'll click on new up here. This is going to be a part. So under part, create 2D and 3D object. Under the metric template, you select the standard MMIPT and create. We would revolve a profile to get this model, which is the pulley. For that, let's pick the 2D sketch command and draw the 2D profile we would be revolving. We will draw this on the YZ plane, and so I'll select that. Now let's pick the line command. You move away from the origin, so this much is fine. Let's draw a horizontal line. The length of this line is 145. I'll enter that in the dynamic input box and press enter. You can double click your scroll mouse button to get your work in focus, or even scroll so you get some more space. To draw a vertical line, the length of this line is 75. I'll type that and enter. Let me also draw another perpendicular line to a distance of 100. I'll type that and press enter. Another perpendicular line also to a length of 200. Let's enter that. Just scroll to get your work in focus. Let's draw another perpendicular line to a distance of 55. We'll also draw another one perpendicular upwards to a distance of 100. Let's enter that. Let's draw a perpendicular line. This time we won't dimension. Let's just leave it here. And then we would also slant this line this way. And so you can just drop it here. This much is fine. And then another horizontal line to the y-axis, and so I'll also drop this here. You can right click and then OK. We would dimension some more. Let's pick the dimension command. The distance between this horizontal line and the origin is 75. Let's also specify the distance between this line and the origin as 45. Okay, and then we would also specify the angle between this line and this very one as 30. Okay, and then we would apply a vertical relationship, and so pick the horizontal one. It will give you the vertical because of the orientation we have. Let's align this point here with the origin. You can right click and then okay, let me see how that looks. Okay, so you can drag it a little bit to get the right profile. Let's see what else we can dimension. We can also dimension the length of this line as 30. And what else? I'm not too sure what that is. It says here we have one dimension more, so one dimension needed. Let's see the dimension we should specify. Let's put an angle, and so dimension the angle between this and that will maintain the 120. Okay, that is there already, so let me cancel. If you don't know what to do, I just like to go into automatic dimension and constraint. It will give me the dimension I need to constrain this. So let me apply and see what that is. Okay, I'm supposed to specify this distance. Let me remove and do it manually. So I'll close this and then I'll dimension the distance between this line and this one as 50. That would fully constrain my sketch. Now let's pick the line command. Let's connect this point to this point. You can right click and then OK. For this line, we would make it constructional. Now we want to mirror what we've done here, these geometries on the opposite side. So we use the mirror command. The lines we want to mirror, it says select. So we'll select everything. You can just click and drag over them. It has all the lines selected and the line we want it to go across. And so for mirror line, we choose the constructional line we placed and hit apply. There we have same geometries on the opposite side, and so you can press done. This sketch is ready. We can revolve now, and so let's finish it and choose the revolve command, and so go into your create group, revolve. The profile has been automatically selected, but the axis we want it to revolve around we can use one of the default axes, and so open up the origins. Let's see the axis we can use. It's going to be the Z axis. We can see that from here. So it matches with the line we want to go around. Now I'll pick the Z axis and hit OK. So there we have it. Now we will select this face and create a sketch on there. We would first pick the rectangle command, and so let's pick the 2-point center rectangle. Let's draw a rectangle here. We can right click and then OK, but we don't see the rectangle because of the plane or the face we selected, and so I'll slice so that it takes any extrusion that comes after that face off for me, so I see my sketch. Now I'll say make equal this length and this length, and then I'll dimension one of them. So the length of this line is going to be, let's do 60 and enter that. Now I would constrain, and so let's put a vertical relationship between the center of that rectangle and the origin. We would also say make coincident this very circle and the center point of that rectangle. That is fully constrained. Okay, we also have some more profiles to draw. And so let's pick the arc and the arc, not under arc actually. Let's go into rectangles and pick the center point arc. And so I've selected that. If you don't know what to do, look down here. It says select center of center arc. So this is going to be the center of our arc. I'll click here and I am going to draw my arc, and so just draw like that. You click for the first point and then you select the end point, and then you open that up and click again. Now we will dimension, and so this is going to be 25. That is going to be the radius, and so I'll type that in here, 25. Let's enter. The distance between this point and this point also is going to be 250. Let me pan down so I get some room and type in my 250. Let's enter. I would also specify the distance between the center of that dotted line and the origin as 250. So just click and you can pick this 250 you have here to replicate it and check. We'll then apply the vertical relationship between the center point here and the origin. That should fully constrain the sketch. You can right click and then OK. We would finish this and we want to extrude. So the extrude command, first of all, let's extrude this rectangle. So I'll select that. And for the boolean, it's going to be a cut, and I want the cut to go through the entire body I have here. So for the distance, I'll select through all. Okay, so let's see. But it's going in just one direction, and so I'll pick symmetric so that it goes through the entire body. Right, now let's hit on the plus sign, and then also for this one we'll select it, and it's going to be the same. It's going to be a boolean cut, and we want the cut to go through all. That has been selected. So there I have my preview. I can turn around to see how that looks and hit OK. But for this extrusion I need some more, and so I am going to pattern that. Let's pick that extrusion here. It's going to be the extrusion 2. Let's go into the circular pattern under the pattern group, and for the feature we've selected that already. The axis we want it to go around, we can use this circular axis, and then here we specify the count, how many we want, and so I'm going to choose 4 here and hit OK. So there I have it. My pulley is ready. Now let me save this, and so I have prepared a folder. I'll save it in there as the pulley or part number 1. Let me add the 1 and type in pulley, and then I would save. Now we move on to the second part, and so let's get a worksheet for that new standard MMI PT we would create. This part is the hook. Let's pick the 2D sketch command and create this sketch also on the YZ plane. Now let's pick the circle command. We are going to draw 2 circles. And so the first one here, the diameter of this is 75. I'll type that and press enter. You can scroll and let's draw another one here. And we would say that make equal this circle and this circle and apply the vertical relationship. Let's pick the horizontal one. between this point, which is the center point of those two circles, would also dimension the distance between those two center points as 120, and we would enter that. Now let's pick the line command. We want to connect this circle to that diagonally, and also say make tangential this circle, and this line would also do same between the line and the second circle. You can right click and then OK. Let's pick the arc command. So drop that down. We will pick the 3-point arc. Let's draw an arc from this point, which is going to be our first point. We'll pick a second point here, and we'll give that a little bit of radius. You can right click and then OK. Let's zoom in, and we will dimension. So the distance between the origin and the center of that arc, the horizontal distance is 20. Click and type that in here, and then we'd also specify the vertical distance. So between this point and this point as 5. Let's enter that. Now let's dimension the radius of this arc as 100. Let's enter that, and then you can right click OK. Now let's pick this point. Let's drag it a little bit further. Okay, this much is fine. And we would pick the line command. Let's draw a line to connect the circle and the points here. We would also make tangential this line and this arc. Let's do same between this line and this circle as well. Now we would apply a constraint, and so let's pick the vertical. It will give us the horizontal. We'll apply it between this point here, and let's locate this point here. So between those two, to align them horizontally, you can right click and then OK. Next we will pick the arc. We want to draw the tip of the hook, and so we'll pick our first point here for the arc. Let's pick our second point, make that a little bit diagonal. We would pick the third point here. We would also draw another one, and so let's pick this point on the circle as our first point. We'll slant that a little bit. We'll pick our second point and give that also a little bit of radius. So this much is fine. We'll draw another arc also to connect these 2 points. Okay, you can right click and then OK. Let's apply some tangential constraints, and to tangent, let's make tangent this arc and this arc. I think we have a tangent between this and that already, but we can also do it to confirm. Okay, that is there. Let's cancel. Also between this and that, and then also between this arc and this arc. You can right click and then OK. Let's apply some dimensions, and so let's give this a radius of, let's do about 50. I'm going freestyle on this part. So for this also, I can do 18 for this arc as well. Let's do 15. And then what we would do next is to dimension. Let's see the distance between this point and the origin. We can do 60 and enter that. Okay. Now let's pick the line command. We want to draw a line here. So connect this point to this point on this circle, and we would dimension the length of this line as 50. Let's do same on this top side, and so pick the line command again. We will draw our line here and also dimension this as 50. Now that is it for this sketch. In order to make the extrusion easy, let's trim off some parts. So pick the trim command. We can take off this part of the circle. Let's see another part. We can take off also this part. Let's not do too much to constrain our work. So let's just leave it here. We would finish it and we would extrude. Let's pick the extrude command. We want to extrude this, and also that the distance of extrusion is going to be 50. Let's make the extrusion symmetric and hit OK. This part is also ready. We would save it, and so save. Let's call this part number 2 hook and save. Now we'll move to the third part, which is the load. Let's get a worksheet, new standard MMI PT we would create. Now we will pick the 2D sketch command and create this sketch on the XZ plane. Let me turn this around, and so I'll use this arrow here to rotate so I can read the top from the left to the right. Now let's go into our slot. Let's pick the 2-point center rectangle. We will draw a rectangle here, and we will dimension this, and so we'll give this a width of 400, and we'll give that a height of 800. Let's enter that. Now we can finish this, and we want to extrude, and so the extrude command, let's let the extrusion go downwards, and so under direction I'll choose flip. The distance of extrusion is going to be 500. I'll type that in here, and let's give that a little bit of taper. So let's do 5 and see how that looks. I think this is fine. Let's hit OK. Now let's apply a fillet, and so the fillet command, we would apply it to all edges. The fillet radius is 100, and just click and drag over everything to apply it to all the edges. Let's hit OK. Now we want to draw the handle. Let's get a plane to work on. Open up the origin. We will be working on the XY plane, and so I click on that and choose create sketch. Let me slice so I see that plane, and now I will pick the line command. Let's draw a line here and dimension the length of this line as 60. We would enter that. We would also dimension the distance between this line here and this point as 80. Let's pick the arc command. Let's draw an arc from this point, and so pick the first point here. Let's pick the second point here and give that a little bit of radius. You can right click OK. Let's dimension this. The distance between this point here and the origin is 60. We would enter that and give that a radius of 170. Let's enter. Alright, now let's see what else we can dimension. Before we even dimension some more, let's pick the line command. We will draw a line here. You can right click OK. Let's make this line a constructional line, and we want to mirror this arc on the opposite side. So the mirror command, the select line is going to be this line. The mirror line will be the constructional line. Let's hit apply and done. We would also apply the vertical relationship between the center of this line and the origin that will constrain it. Let's even apply some fillets. So let's pick the fillet command. Let's do a fillet radius of 30. Let's see how that looks between this arc and also this line. Will do same on the opposite side, but 30 is a little bit too much, so let me reduce that to 20, and we would enter. Okay, I didn't reduce it. Let me double click actually from here and reduce that to 20 and press enter. Now we would offset this. Let's do an offset distance of about 20. Let's enter, but this line is hanging, so we want to apply a constraint. Let's even extend rather, so extend. Let's extend this line. We would extend it to this very line. Would also extend this, and then we would pick the line command. Let's connect this point to this point. Would also do same on the opposite side. You can right click and then OK, but it says we need 4 more dimensions, so let's just pick the dimension command. We'll select this line. Let's go with whatever dimension we get. We'll do same on the opposite side. I don't know what else is left. It shouldn't be this. Let's go into automatic dimension. Let's apply. Okay, so we will just maintain this and done. Now let's finish this, and we want to extrude this profile here. Let's make the direction symmetric and change the distance of extrusion. Let's do 50. Let's see how that looks. I think 50 is okay. Let's hit OK. Let's apply some fillet. A fillet radius of 5 is fine. Let's click and drag over this part and hit OK. Now we are also done with the load. Let's save this as the part number 3, load. We have the rope to model, but for that we will do it within the assembly template. So for now, let's begin to assemble. Let's get assembly sheet template new up here. Under assembly, assemble 2D and 3D components, standard MMIAM. Let's create. I like to always change the view, so go into view tab first, under visual style shaded with edges. Let's go back into the assembly tab. Now let's bring in our first part into replace. The first part is going to be the pulley. Let's locate that. There I have the folder I saved my part into. I'll select the pulley and open. Let me drop that here. You can right click and then OK. We need just one part and I have it placed. Now this has so many degrees of freedom. We want to reduce that to just 1 degree of freedom. We just want to rotate this pulley. So how we would do that is to constrain, and here we want to apply a constraint between this hole here we have, and let's open up the default planes and axis and the Z plane. So we'll do the two. Let's apply. Now let's close this. Let's see what we've done. We are able to rotate it, but it's also moving. We want to constrain this to one plane. So let's turn on the visibility of the plane we want to constrain, which is going to be, in our case, let's see, the XZ plane. So I'll click on that, right click and turn on visibility. Let me do same for the assembly also. So I'll turn on the visibility of the XY plane. Now we can constrain the two. So constrain is going to be a flash between this and that. Let's apply and close this. Now let's see what we've done. We are only able to rotate it, which is exactly what we prefer. Right. Now we can turn off the visibility of these planes in order not to get confused. So let me click on them and turn off visibility. Now I can bring in another part and so place. The other part I want to bring in is the hook. Let me even just bring in the two. So the hook and the load at the same time. Let's open. We will drop them here. You can right click and OK. The hook is hiding in here. So just click and drag the load. You will find the hook. Let me put this also. Okay, let me put this here. Now let's constrain the load. For that, let's see how we are going to go about it. Let's turn on the visibility of some planes. It makes constraining much easier. So let's look for the XY plane. Let's turn on the visibility again. We will do same for the load. So open that up, open up its origin. Let's turn on the visibility of the XY plane. Let's also turn on the visibility of the YZ plane. I'll do same for the hook, and so we will turn on the visibility of the YZ, and we will do same for the XZ. Now let's constrain. So constraints, we want to constrain the YZ plane to the YZ plane of the load, but it's going to be a flash. Let's apply. Now let's close this. Let's see what we have. Let me even drag so we see those two. Okay, they are constrained to that plane. Now let me also constrain this plane. So the XY and XY, I would also flash that. Let's apply. Now I would also constrain, which is the mate now, this face also to this face. Let's apply so I can have that also in place. Let me get the isometric view. Let's see what I've done. Great. So now those two should be able to move together. But we also want to constrain this to this plane so that it's moving in line with that. So constraint again. Let's constrain this also to that robot flash. Let's apply and close. Now let's see. Okay, We also want to constrain this plane rather to another plane, but for that we would offset. So let's drop down plane, let's offset a plane to the YZ plane, and the offset distance is going to be the radius of this, which is the radius of the groove. That is going to be 420. So I'll type that in here. The radius of the groove is actually 400, but we want to add the diameter of the rope that would go around it. That is why I have 420. Let's hit OK. Let me even get the top view so we see what we've done. So we've put a plane here, and this between the groove and this plane is going to be the radius of our rope. Let me get the isometric view. Now I'm going to constrain. Let's select this plane here we introduced and this one. Let's flash that and hit apply. Let's close this. Now let's see what we've done. Okay, it's moving along that plane, but we don't also want this to move anyhow. We want to constrain it. Now let me turn on the visibility of the XZ plane, and I would also constrain between this plane and we didn't turn on the visibility of this plane, the XZ of the load. So let me close this. Let me turn on the visibility of the XZ plane of the load. So there I have it. We can even do between this face rather and this plane. So we would constrain this plane, and let's do this face. Make sure you are selecting this face. We want to flash that, but we want to set an offset distance. Let's do 1250. Let me see how that looks. Which means we have to negate it, but I don't like to negate. So let's close this. Let's constrain again. If you select this before that, it won't be negated, but if you go the other way you have to negate it. So let's rather do the 1250. We see that we won't have to negate it, and let's choose flash. Let's hit apply and close. Now we are unable to move this. We've set the start of our rope, and now with everything set we can build our rope. Let's see how we will do that. Before we do that, let's turn off the visibility of some of these planes. And so for the planes of the load here, so YZ, hold down Control XY, let's turn off the visibility. Let's do same for the hook also. We'll turn off the visibility of those planes we have turned on. Now also for this plane, we can select it from the work area and turn off the visibility. Now let's see, I think we can maintain these two or even turn off the visibility of this as well. So we are left with just this plane of the assembly, which is the XY plane. Now let's see how we can create the rope. For that, we'll create it within this assembly like I mentioned. Before we go on, let's save this. And so save, I'm going to save this in the same folder as assembly 1 and hit save. Let's say yes to all and OK. Now let's create the rope, and so click on create here, and we are going to change the name from part 4 to part number 4 rope. And let's browse our sheet template, go into metric just like we would have done if we were beginning to pick a sheet to create our model. Now under the metric, pick standard MMIPT and hit OK. Now we would OK again. And we want to create or begin to create this sketch on the XY plane. Great. Now let me introduce an axis, and so let's pick axis, and we want to put an axis here. Do we have that? Okay, there it is hidden. You can even see that as work axis. Okay, and also we want to offset a plane, so drop down the plane, offset from plane. We want to offset from this face back to a distance of 0. Let's check that. So now we have this plane and that axis to work with. Let's pick the 2D sketch command and begin to create our rope. We want to create this sketch on, let's open up the planes. Let's pick the XY plane. Great. Now we will draw the line. So pick the line command. Let's draw a line here. We will leave it here and we will draw an arc. So hold down and draw your arc. And then we would also draw another line here. You can right click and then OK. Let's dimension. The radius of this is 420, just like we specified for the offset distance of the plane we used to constrain. We'll type 420 in here and enter. Let's also project this plane we introduce here, and we want to use that to say make coincident this point and that plane so it sits on it. Right. We would also dimension the length here is 120. All right, so just click and we will check. And let's see another dimension we have to also specify. Let's zoom in. We have to put a constraint between the center of that arc and the origin. It says it would over constrain the sketch, so let me cancel this rather. And what I want to do is to delete this dimension and rather apply that constraint between this point and this point here that will constrain the sketch. So we would dimension again. This is going to over constrain, but we would accept that. So just click and accept. And also for the length of this one, we want to say that make this 2000 subtracted from this one. So at every point in time, we should have 2000 subtracted from this. That will serve as our drive. Let's check that. Now this is ready. We would finish it. This is going to also serve as the path for the rope. So let's draw the profile. We would sweep to get the rope. Now we will select this plane and create a sketch on there. Let me pan and even zoom in. But we want the center point here, so we would project this rectangle we have here, and we would also draw a line. Let's connect this corner to that corner. This is also, we can find the center point here. You can right click OK. So let's select this and make it constructional. Now we'll pick the circle command. Let's draw a circle here. The diameter of this circle is going to be 40. Let's enter that and finish the sketch. Now we can sweep, and so the sweep command, the profile has been selected. The path we want to sweep along is going to be this one. There we have a preview. It looks fine, and so we can hit OK. Now we are within the rope part, so we can click on return. So we return to the main assembly, and just like that, our rope has been created. Now we can turn off the visibility of this plane. Great. Let's even go into view. Let's apply shadow. Let's do a reflection just before we drive, and let's not change the lighting effect. I think this is fine. Now let's see what we can do. So we want to drive this actually. Let's go into our relationships. Let's find this flash, and so click on it, right click and choose drive. Now for the start of the drive is going to be the 1250. For the end of that, I would like to change it to 500. Let's open this up and make sure you turn on the drive adaptive. Let's note that this part is adaptive, the rope. We built it as if it's part of the hook and even of the pulley. Now let's choose that option here, and let's also amount of value is okay, but let's increase that to about 30. Let's do start, end, and start, and we want to do that 2 times. Right, now let's play and see if everything works fine, and so we hit play. Okay, it's moving, but that is so much not the motion we want. So I know what we can do. Let's close this for now. Let's apply final constraint. Let's go back into assembly tab. Let's constrain. We want to constrain this rope, and so just touch in here with the Z axis of the main assembly, which is this one, so that it goes around it rather instead of moving up and down. Let's hit apply. Let's close this now. Let's drive again and see. So let's open this up. We have all our details specified. Let me take this back and play. Okay, we can even do that. It looks satisfying. Let me do that 4 times. Let's hit play. That is 1, 2, 3, and then 4. But let's notice that this pulley is not rotating. It is not rotating. It's supposed to rotate so that the rope goes around it. Let's close this and fix that. Let's apply another constraint also. And so constraint. Now for this time is going to be a motion, and the type is going to be the second option, rotation translation. Now we want to pick this hole here and pick this face, and make sure you have this distance in here, 471.239 millimeters. Now let's hit apply. Okay, now we can drive, but before we do that, let's change the appearance of this. And so for the pulley, I will change the appearance of that to, let's do horn H. So type H to move to the H column, select horn. And then for the load also, let me change the appearance of that to one of the metal colors. I'll do this one. And also for the hook, let me do same horn. And then for the rope also, I'm going to change the appearance of that to, let's see, I'm not too sure. Okay, let me use this blue, yellow, whatever. Okay, now let's see, we can drive finally. And so let's look for the flash, click on it, right click and drive. We would take it back and then play. If you want a much faster rotation of the pulley, this is what you can do. So let's close this for now and go in here. So double click on the rotation. You can divide this distance by 2 and let's hit OK. Now let's play one last time. And so we click on it, right click and drive. No, not this one. And so we click on the flash, right click and drive. Now let's take it back and play. So we see now that the pulley is moving faster or rotating much faster than the load. Okay. Alright, and so that's going to be it for today's tutorial. I hope you find this helpful. If you do, please consider subscribing if you have not done that. Also, do want to give me a thumbs up. It helps the algorithm notice this video and push it out to a lot more people. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, or contributions, you can drop them down in the comment section below. I would respond to them as soon as possible. Don't forget to share this with your card friends and also save this. I'll see you soon in the next tutorial. Bye.